Now, with regard to the levels in which the currencies are expected to swing during this particular week, Euro could come down to 1.09 during that of the downward stop and moves or an extended downward stop and before making a rise to 1.13. And GBP also could come down a little bit to 1.2350 area. They are all mathematically derived levels. So around that level, they will be turning around and then start gaining the levels to that of 1. So there is a typo here. So they could go to 1.2750 later on. Then in the case of yen, they could come down to 102.75 and 105.75 could be the high. They could make one extended upward stop and start dropping USD yen when Euro and GBP are rising. So when Euro and GBP are rising initially, they will gain the levels in the case of USD yen as a contrarian move and then suddenly make the drop. In the case of USD yen, that will trigger Euro and GBP to go up. And again later on, they will gain the levels in the case of USD yen. So that is how they will just make the moves. So they use USD yen as the catalyst for the market to get the trigger and change the market sentiment. And USDCHF, it could come down to 0.9650 and 0.99 could be the high during the swing. And in the case of Canadian dollar, it could come down drastically to 1.3150 from the 1.34 area. And slowly they will make an upward stop and start dropping. And in the case of Australian dollar, they could make a downward stop and then start gaining the level to 0.7775 area. So these are all the expected ranges in this particular week. You can monitor slowly, and on Friday I'll update the actual levels on a daily basis and show you how exactly they made the moves in the market. Then you will be able to understand how these calculations are reliable. Now we will come to that of the market reading. So I noted down the initial lows and the highs around 3:30 GMT from that of the live market quote page. So Euro formed the low at that time 1.1055 and the high was 1.1141 and both the high and the low are not breached. In the case of GBP, 1.2457 is the low, 1.2498 is the high. They just breached the low 1.2557 and staying below that, indicating that they wanted to make another drop for 2 hours as an extended move and then start gaining the levels. From the time of cutting the new low, it will take 2 hours and then start gaining the level. Watch that. The new low, when they form and stop cutting the new low, for 30 minutes you can take a buy during that of the late Japanese session. In the case of yen, 103.79 is the low, 104.4547 was the high. They just made a brief upward stop into 104.50 and come closer to the 1.0447, and they are expected to hold like this for a brief time or probably for 2 hours and then start making the drop without cutting the new high they have formed. In the case of CHF, 97.30 is the low, 97.74 is the high. They have not breached the low or the high still. In the case of Canadian dollar, 1.3344 is the low, 1.3391 is the high. They have not breached the low or the high. Then Australian dollar, 76.59 is the low, 76.85 is the high. They are not breached. So you find the activity only in the case of USD yen and GBP to start with. So that means they are handling USD yen and GBP now in order to bring in the volatility in the case of crosses, GBP related crosses and yen related crosses. And also by making a contrarian move in the case of commodity pairs, they are bringing in the volatility in the case of the commodity crosses also. Namely, Euro Canadian dollar or Euro GBP Canadian dollar, then Euro Aussie GBPUSD, etc.